She dated Redd Foxx in secret. Now, we know the reason why. For decades, Hollywood had no idea. Behind the perfect smiles, the flashing lights, and the endless applause, one of television's most dignified women was hiding a story no one dared to imagine. Nancy Culp, the sharp-minded actress known for her prim role as Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, once shared a secret bond with one of comedy's most fearless legends, Redd Foxx. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, her quiet intellect against his raw street humor, but behind closed doors, something extraordinary unfolded. It was a connection born not from glamour, but from understanding. In an era when such relationships were whispered about in fear, they chose silence over scandal, loyalty over fame. For years, the truth lay buried beneath old photographs and fading memories. Only now, long after both have gone, do we begin to understand what really happened between the Lady of Grace and the King of Laughter, before the cameras ever found her, before Hollywood knew her name. Nancy Jane Culp was just a curious girl from a small town in Pennsylvania. Born in 1921, she grew up surrounded by the quiet rhythm of rural life and the pages of the books she loved to read. While other girls dreamed of movie stars, Nancy dreamed of ideas, of words, of stories waiting to be told. Her mind was sharp, her ambition even sharper. She earned her degree in journalism at Florida State College for Women and later went on to complete a master's in English and French at the University of Miami. At a time when women were often told to stay silent, Nancy chose to use her voice in print, on air, and eventually on screen. Her first steps were not in front of the camera, but behind it. She worked as a writer for a Miami newspaper and later joined the publicity department at MGM Studios. There, she learned the mechanics of storytelling and the power of an image. Every headline, every photograph, every word shaped her understanding of how fame was built and how truth could be hidden behind it. But destiny had a way of calling her forward. When World War II broke out, Nancy made a choice that few in Hollywood could ever claim. She put aside her early career to serve her country. Joining the United States Naval Reserve in 1944, she rose to the rank of lieutenant junior grade, a mark of courage, discipline, and unwavering resolve. Those years would define her character forever. The quiet girl from Pennsylvania had become a woman of intellect, strength, and duty, and though she didn't know it yet, the world that once seemed so far away, the dazzling, unpredictable world of show business, was already waiting for her. When the war ended, Nancy returned to civilian life with a new sense of purpose. She had faced the chaos of battle and come out stronger, calmer, and more determined than ever. Hollywood, once a distant dream, now felt like the next battlefield to conquer. In the early 1950s, she packed her sharp wit, her commanding voice, and her quiet confidence, stepping into a world built on illusion. Her presence was unlike anyone else's. She wasn't the glamorous starlet or the fragile beauty Hollywood adored. She was intelligent, grounded, and unapologetically herself. Casting directors noticed immediately. With her tall frame, distinct tone, and impeccable timing, Nancy Culp became the woman who could make even the smallest role unforgettable. She appeared in films like The Model and The Marriage Broker, Shane, and A Star is Born, each performance leaving a quiet but lasting impression. Yet it was television that would immortalize her. In 1962, she was cast as Miss Jane Hathaway in the Beverly Hillbillies, and suddenly, America fell in love. Miss Hathaway was not just another sitcom secretary. She was the embodiment of wit, elegance, and subtle longing, often caught between professionalism and an unspoken affection for her clueless colleague, Jethro. Nancy played her with precision and warmth, turning a supporting role into the beating heart of the show. Her deadpan expressions, her careful posture, and her understated humor made her unforgettable. In 1967, she earned an Emmy nomination. But what mattered more was how she became a household name. Every living room knew that voice, that face, that quiet dignity. Behind the laughter of the Beverly Hillbillies was a woman who represented something new in American television, a woman who didn't need glamour to shine. She needed only her intellect, her courage, and her truth. While Nancy Culp built her name on elegance and restraint, another kind of star was rising from the heart of Harlem. His name was Redd Foxx, and he was everything Hollywood tried to tame but never could. Born into poverty, he grew up on the rough edges of New York's streets, hustling, surviving, learning the rhythm of laughter as a weapon and a shield. Redd wasn't just funny. He was brilliant, raw, and fearless. Long before television welcomed him, he was already a legend in the smoky nightclubs of the Chitlin circuit, where his unfiltered humor and cutting wit made him the voice of a generation that refused to be silenced. His comedy wasn't polite or polished. It was alive, sharp, and dangerous. He talked about race, love, hypocrisy, and the absurdity of life with a candor that both shocked and delighted audiences. By the time he stepped into the role of Fred Sanford in Sanford and Son during the 1970s, America was ready, or thought it was ready, for someone like him. He didn't just play Fred Sanford, he became him. A grumpy junk dealer with a heart of gold, full of contradictions, sarcasm, and wisdom disguised as laughter. Overnight, Redd Foxx became a cultural icon. The kind of man who could make you laugh until you cried, and then leave you thinking, long after the show ended, if Nancy was a quiet storm, Redd was a hurricane. She represented grace, education, and composure. He embodied chaos, freedom, and unfiltered truth. Their worlds should never have collided. But fate doesn't care about categories. Fate recognizes energy. And when two souls burn with the same fire, one of intellect, the other of instinct, they will find each other no matter the odds. When they finally met, it wasn't on a movie set or through an agent's introduction. It was at a charity event in Los Angeles, a night filled with music, laughter, and the hum of Hollywood's elite. Redd, ever the entertainer, had the room roaring with laughter. Nancy, reserved but observant, watched him closely. He noticed her too, not for her fame, but for the calm intelligence in her eyes. The contrast between them was magnetic. In a world obsessed with image, they saw something deeper in each other: honesty. What began as conversation soon turned into something no one could have predicted. It began with a smile. Not a staged one for cameras or flashing lights, but a quiet, genuine smile shared across a crowded room. The charity gala in Los Angeles was full of polished laughter and expensive gowns. But when Redd Foxx noticed Nancy Culp standing near the back, something shifted. She wasn't there to impress anyone. Her presence was calm, almost detached, yet magnetic in its simplicity. He cracked a joke, half to the audience, half to her, and for the first time that night, she laughed, not politely, not out of obligation, but with real amusement. That sound, light and honest, caught him completely off guard. Later that evening, as the music slowed and the crowd thinned, Redd found her standing by the refreshment table, quietly observing the chaos around her. He walked up, still unsure what to say, but she spoke first. "You have a gift," she said softly. "You make people forget the noise for a moment." He grinned. "And you," he replied, "see through it." That was how it started. No flirtation, no agenda, just a connection that felt startlingly natural. They talked for hours about books, politics, race, and the absurdity of fame. Two minds from different worlds, meeting on equal ground. Nancy admired his sharpness, his courage to speak truths that others buried. Redd was fascinated by her depth, her ability to listen without judgment, her dry humor that cut deeper than any punchline he could write. In a city built on masks, they recognized each other without one. The comedian and the intellectual, the chaos and the calm, drawn together by something neither could explain. When they parted that night, neither said goodbye. They simply looked at each other and smiled again, both sensing that something rare had just begun. It wasn't love at first sight. In the Hollywood sense, it was recognition, the quiet spark between two souls who suddenly realized they were no longer alone. What followed was a love that existed quietly, hidden between the lines of their lives. Away from the cameras and the glittering parties, Nancy and Redd created a world of their own, built not on passion alone, but on understanding. They spent long evenings reading together, sharing books instead of promises. He would tease her about her academic taste, calling her Professor Culp, while she rolled her eyes and challenged him to quote Shakespeare. Sometimes they would argue, sometimes they would laugh until their eyes watered, and sometimes they would just sit in silence, both aware that in that silence they had found peace. But peace came at a cost. The world around them wasn't ready to see what they shared. It was the late 1960s, and interracial relationships were still treated as scandalous. A white woman of education and a black comedian known for his unfiltered tongue, it was a combination society would never forgive. They knew that one headline could destroy everything. Redd, already under the media's spotlight, was constantly followed by gossip columns hungry for controversy. Nancy, on the other hand, faced her own kind of scrutiny. Her private life had always been quiet, too quiet for a woman in Hollywood. Rumors began to swirl, questioning her femininity, her sexuality, her choices. She never confirmed or denied anything. She simply carried herself with grace, refusing to let whispers define her. So they kept their bond in the shadows, protecting it like something sacred. They met at small cafes, exchanged letters, and called each other late at night when the world slept. There were no grand gestures, no public declarations, just a simple, enduring companionship between two people who understood what it meant to be misunderstood. Redd once told a close friend, "She doesn't laugh at me for the jokes. She laughs because she gets them." That was their secret language, a connection that no spotlight could touch. In a city where love was often performed, theirs was lived in silence. It wasn't a weakness, it was survival. And in that quiet corner of Hollywood, hidden from the flashing lights, two lonely souls found something real, something worth protecting from a world too loud to ever understand. For years, people assumed their secrecy was born from shame, from fear of scandal or rejection. But the truth was far more delicate, far more human. They weren't hiding because they were afraid of the world. They were protecting something that the world would never understand. To Nancy and Redd, what they shared was not meant to be dissected, labeled, or sensationalized. It was private because it was pure. They never called it love, at least not in the way Hollywood liked to define it. There were no diamonds, no headlines, no whispered promises of forever. What they had existed somewhere between friendship and affection, between respect and tenderness, a quiet companionship that felt larger than romance itself. It was the meeting of two souls who recognized each other's loneliness and found comfort in the space between words. Redd once said in a late-night interview, "The hardest thing about this business isn't the fame, it's finding someone who listens." Nancy listened, not to his jokes, not to his persona, but to the man behind them. Their connection didn't need validation, it needed silence, and in that silence, they built something unbreakable. When they met, there were no grand gestures. When they parted, there were no tears, only a knowing glance that spoke louder than any confession. To outsiders, their relationship might have looked strange. Two stars from opposite worlds, bound by something invisible. But to those who knew them, it was simple. They were each other's piece. In a time when every story in Hollywood was twisted into gossip, they refused to let theirs be tainted. Redd once told a friend, "We didn't keep it secret because we were scared. We kept it secret because it was ours." That single sentence explained everything. What they shared wasn't a scandal. It was sanctuary, a rare, sacred connection untouched by fame, color, or the cruel curiosity of the public. And perhaps that's why their story remained hidden for so long. It was never about denial. It was about protection. They didn't need the world's approval to know what they meant to each other. Sometimes the purest relationships are the ones spoken in silence, preserved in memory, and remembered only by those who truly understand what love looks like when it has no name. Time, as it always does, began to pull them in different directions. Hollywood kept spinning, chasing new faces and fresh scandals, while Nancy quietly stepped away from the noise. She sold her home in California and moved east, trading red carpets for classrooms at Juniata College in Pennsylvania. She began teaching acting and communication, guiding young minds who had no idea their soft-spoken professor was once a star of American television. She found peace there, not in fame, but in purpose. Between lectures, she tended to her garden, volunteered for local charities, and worked with organizations supporting the disabled. She didn't need applause anymore. What mattered now was giving back. Redd persevered through hardship, performing passionately even as age and challenges intensified. His spirit remained unstoppable. In 1991, Nancy Culp faced cancer with dignity, passing away in February surrounded by nature, while Redd Foxx suddenly collapsed while filming. Both left the world within months, their stories intertwined, embodying grace and authenticity, creating a legacy defined by truth rather than fame.